Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Romans, the 3rd chapter. What advantage then hath the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision? Much every way, chiefly, because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. So he's saying, well, you might ask, so then is there any benefit to being a Jew or any profit to being circumcised? And he's saying, well, yeah, because chiefly they were the ones that the Lord gave the oracles, right? The oracles were committed, meaning when you go into that word oracles, it was first revealed to them the ways of the Lord, right? It says of the contents of the Mosaic law. So he's saying that was first given to them. For what if, as it says here, for what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? So because some people do not believe or are unfaithful, shall their unfaithfulness affect God's faithfulness? No, it doesn't work that way. Pull this up here. It says true. Let's actually go up a bit. Then what's the advantage of being a Jew? Is there any value in the ceremony of circumcision? Yes, there are great benefits. First of all, the Jews were entrusted with the whole revelation of God. True, some of them were unfaithful, but just because they were unfaithful, does that mean God will be unfaithful? See, because really, when you go back to the first covenant the Lord made with us, it wasn't fault on the Lord's part. He found fault with us, but he stayed faithful. We didn't. Okay. So Paul is saying here, God forbid, because of your unfaithfulness, that doesn't make the Most High unfaithful. God forbid. Yea, let God be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. And here, what Paul is saying when he mentions about the about this latter part, he's quoting, I believe, the book of Psalms, but this is referring to the Lord. Okay, and basically when he says, first one, God forbid, yea, let God be true, but every man a liar, right? Because the Lord is going to remain true and faithful regardless, right? And so that's why in the 3rd verse he mentioned, yeah, you may be unfaithful, but that doesn't make God unfaithful. In fact, God would be true and everybody else would be a liar because God remains faithful, but man is not so. So then he quotes, right, as it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings and mightest overcome when thou art judged. It's not saying when the Lord is judged. It's referring to the Lord, but it's not saying when he is judged. The Old English just sounds a bit tricky. In other words, what Paul is saying here is when God acts, right, or speaks, he is always shown to be right. Okay, in the things that he judges you based on. Okay, or the verdict that he gives is always shown to be right because he is always faithful, unlike man. Okay, so that's putting it all together. The Most High is true, but every man is a liar. As it is written, that the Lord is justified in the things that he says, and he overcomes, which is another way of also being justified, when he brings judgment. All right, not when he is judged. NLT, it says here, of course not. Even if everyone else is a liar, God is true. As the scriptures says about him, you will be proven right in what you say, and you will win your case in court. NIV, not at all. Let God be true and every human being a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. Because he's going to judge and speak according to righteousness. But if our unrighteousness commend the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unrighteous who taketh vengeance? I speak as a man. So he's saying, okay, well, if through our unrighteousness, God is made to look more righteous, then are we going to say that God is unrighteous because he's taking vengeance on us, even though through our unrighteousness he is made more righteous? God forbid. For then how shall God judge the world? If there's unrighteousness with God, how then is he going to be the judge of the world? For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? So there goes that diatribe again, right? This hypothetical response from someone to say, well, if the truth of God is more abounded, if the righteousness or the faithfulness of God is made more evident through my wickedness, all right, or my lie, and this is to the glorification of God, why then does he judge me as a sinner? And not rather, as we be slanderously reported, and as some affirm that we say, let us do evil that good may come, whose damnation is just. So let's read this together. Previous. In the NLT it says, or actually in the NIV, some might argue, if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increase his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? Why not say, as some slanderously claim that we say, let us do evil that good may result? Their condemnation is just. NLT. And some people even slander us by claiming that we say, the more we sin, the better it is. Those who say such things deserve to be condemned. So he's raising up that hypothetical response, right? Somebody might say, well, if through my wickedness God is made to look more righteous, why is he going to judge me? So then Paul is saying, well, with that mindset, then you might as well go and say that let's go ahead and keep doing evil so that good can come out of it. And he's saying here that this is what some people actually, even say that we are pushing that even though we're not. And those people are going to get judged accordingly. What then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise. For we have both proved, both Jews and Gentiles, that they are all under sin. NLT, well then, should we conclude that we Jews are better than others? No, not at all. For we have already shown that all people, whether Jews or Gentiles, are under the power of sin. So you're not any better because you're still subject to sin, right? You're not perfect just because you're a Jew. And he made that whole point in the second chapter. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth. There is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable, right? Useless. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. This is referring to Israel here, right? Paul is quoting precepts that were saying this, that the Lord was using the prophets to say this about Israel. Their throat is an open sepulcher. Their tongue, a sepulcher is a grave, a place where you bury somebody. Their tongue. And so how would somebody's throat be like an open sepulcher? An open sepulcher is a grave ready to put somebody in there. You're not going to bury somebody in the throat of somebody else. That's just crazy work. So their throat from which comes forth their words is like an open sepulcher, all right, because of the evil deeds that comes forth out of them. And their tongues, or the things they say, or with their tongues, they have used deceit. And the poison of asps, which is like a venomous snake, is under their lips. This is characterizing them as being downright wicked, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and that meaning that you would have no excuse, and that all the world may become guilty before God. So it says here, obviously the law applies to those to whom it was given, for its purpose is to keep people from having excuses and to show that the entire world is guilty before God. So the law was given, as Paul also, goes on to expound, it wasn't to create sin, but rather to reveal. For example, if if you're driving in a certain area, this is an example, right? When you're driving in a certain area, a speed camera or a speed limit is not to make you speed, but rather to expose those that do speed, okay, in certain areas. So if when the law wasn't there, you were doing certain things, but when the law was there, it exposed the things that you were doing that were contrary to what the Lord wanted. So it says here, verse 30, Slakia, verse 20, therefore by the deeds of the law there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin, the example that I just gave. So by the deeds of the law, nobody's going to be justified in the sight of the Lord, because none of us can actually be perfect according to the deeds of the law. For by the law, is the knowledge of sin. So if somebody is doing wickedness and there's no law against that, then it's not a sin. But when the law is there, then by the law you have knowledge of that sin. Don't do this. Don't do this now shows, if you go and do it, that you're going off. But if there was no don't do this, then you wouldn't be going off. If at I don't know, let's say 70 years ago, the speed limit on a certain highway was 100 miles an hour, okay, that's fine. You could be driving 70, you could be driving 80. But if the speed limit was updated to 50 miles an hour, guess what? You're now found to be breaking the law or infraction if you're still going 70 or 80. But that's what you were doing before. But now, because of that law, it's now known that, hey, you're in violation. But now the righteousness of God without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. And that righteousness of God without the law was through Yahushua. NLT, but now God has shown us a way to be made right with him without keeping the requirements of the law, as was promised in the writings of Moses and the prophets long ago. What that means is the Lord has provided a way to be justified, to be made righteous, all right, that is not by the works of the law. These were things that were witnessed or prophesied by the prophets. Even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Yahushua HaMashiach. Because guess what? Those that get delivered by the Lord, it's not because of them keeping the laws, right? It's not how well they kept the laws, because none of us, even the elect, are not keeping the laws 100%, but yet they're going to be delivered. So by what righteousness are they going to be delivered? By the righteousness which is by faith in Yahushua HaMashiach. Unto all and upon all that believe. That believe in the Lord. For there is no difference. For I have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Salakia, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So it says here in the NLT, we are made right with God by placing our faith in Yahushua HaMashiach. And this is true for everyone who believes, no matter who we are. That's what it means by there is no difference. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So it's not going to be by our works of the law that is going to make us righteous, because we've all sinned and we've all come short. Being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Yahushua HaMashiach. See, so our justification, or being made righteous, which is given to us freely through the grace of the Lord, comes by way of Yahushua, by the us being redeemed, okay, through Yahushua, whom God hath set forth to be a propitiation. A propitiation is like an appeasement. When let's say, a God is angry and you make an offering to them, and that appeases their wrath, that's what Yahushua was likened onto, right? So the Lord has set forth Yahushua to be a propitiation, or an appeasement of his wrath through faith in his blood. So through faith in Yahushua's blood, we're able to get the benefit of the atonement of Yahushua for us, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past, through the forbearance of God. So the Lord, to show forth his righteousness and his loving kindness to us, gave us Yahushua as a form of propitiation, that through faith in his blood and through his sacrifice, our sins of the past may be remitted. And this all happened by way of the forbearance, okay, of God. Because had the Lord not, just going to that word forbearance, had the Lord not done that, iniquity would be imputed into all of us, and we wouldn't stand a chance. So it says here, toleration. See, the Lord tolerated us long enough to be able to send us a savior. To declare, I say, at this time, his righteousness, that he might be just, and the justifier of him which believeth in Yahushua. See, so the Lord did this to declare his righteousness and show forth how just he is. And the justifier, the Lord is the justifier of those that believe in Yahushua. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. There is no room for boasting. By what law? Of works? Nay, but by the law of faith. So if this came not by the law of the works, then there is no room for boasting, because this came by the law of faith. Therefore, we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. So he's saying here, now we've proven here that a man being counted as righteous or being justified is not by how well they keep the deeds of the law, but by faith in Yahushua. Is he the God of the Jews only? Is he not also of the Gentiles, which are Israelite foreigners? Yes, of the Gentiles also. Seeing it is one God, which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith. Same thing. It's the same God, and those of the circumcision that believe would be justified by their faith in the Lord, and those of the uncircumcision that believe would be justified by their faith through the Lord. So in believing in the Lord, that would be their passageway to justification. Do we then make void the law through faith? So Paul before ending it, he's saying, well, after everything we've said here, we just said in verse 28 that man is not justified by the deeds of the law. So does that mean that we make void the law just because we have faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. Why? Because think about this. Keeping the laws 100% on this side, even though we're imperfect, it's not what's going to give us righteousness or perfection. Having faith in Yahushua is the way to righteousness and perfection. However, once we're made perfect, what is going to be a sign of that? The second covenant is that those very same laws are going to be put in our inward parts. And we're going to be living by those very same laws in the kingdom. So we're not making void the law, but we're understanding that it is not by the law that we will make it to the kingdom. We have to first make it there to be made perfect. Okay? So the Lord is saying, look, believe on Yahushua so I can make you perfect. Once you're made perfect, I can then put those laws within your heart and we can do this again. And that brings us to the end of the book of Romans, the 3rd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.